The Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report, the DBIR, was released in May. This marks the report's 13th year of publication. Its scope continues to grow. The 2020 report analyzes 32,002 security incidents with 3,950 confirmed breaches, as reported by the 81 countries who contributed to the study. The DBIR has risen in prominence to become a leading barometer for data security professionals in their fight to battle cybercrime. Today I'm talking with Kyle about 3 threat areas trending on the rise: vulnerabilities in web applications, system misconfigurations, and social engineering with a focus on phishing. Please join us. All right, well, let's get right to it. Kyle, what are the key takeaways from the 2019 and 2020 Verizon DBIR reports?
Now let's start with phishing. 22% of all the breaches involve social engineering, and phishing is majority of the social engineering attacks. 60% of all the successful phishing resulted in stolen credentials.
And C-level executives are 12 times more likely to be the target in identified incidents and 9 times more likely in breaches.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the FBI did a business email compromise, the BEC study, in 2019, and that they actually find out that financial loss from BEC was $1.7 billion in 2019. So let's take a look at breaches related to errors next. So on errors, misconfiguration and misdelivery of information to an unauthorized third party. That's what we're talking about here. This is the only action type consistently increased every year for the last 7 years. Misconfiguration for all errors was 18% in 2019, and it's close to 40% in 2020. Why are there so much misconfiguration problems out there? To me, it's actually not too much of a surprise, because the IT environments are just getting more and more complex. There are cloud container technologies, cloud features. There are more and more cloud features, and there are DevOps environments trying to push things out as fast as the company can.
Well, and migration to the cloud is a paradigm shift. Business organizations feel that they're more secure overall, but it's pretty common that we see instances where clients aren't connecting to it securely.
Oh, absolutely. Application implementation is also getting complex. So there are modern authentication, for example, OAuth technology, the single sign-on, API management, and DevOps as well. It's very difficult to put in security in the DevOps. Also, there's the relying heavily on the third-party software. There are more and more third-party software that are being used by the companies. And as they are using these companies, it's very difficult to learn the secure configuration for all of the software that are using. So with that reason, there are more and more vulnerabilities, more and more misconfigurations in these softwares as well. So with more technologies, more software that are introduced into organizations, I predict we will see a higher number on this misconfiguration category next year.
Sure.
Let's take a look at the hacking. Hacking consists of 45% of all the data breaches. With hacking-related breaches, 85% will use the brute force and the stolen credentials. Stolen credentials can very easily be found in the internet and or the dark web, because there are many previous major data breaches from major companies, and there are hundreds of millions of records out there. Okay. Let's take a look at the trend for web application. 43% of all the breaches involve web application. And all the hacking-related breaches, 90% involve web applications. Why do hackers choose web applications? We mentioned a little bit earlier, but web application and the web APIs They have a lot of vulnerabilities out there. Web application and the web APIs, they have grown exponentially in the recent years. They've also become more and more complex. We already mentioned there are a lot of newer technologies such as cloud, containers, modern authentications, OAuth, DevOps, and also the open source libraries security. Open source library security is not easy to manage because there are so many open sources components that are being utilized by the developers. And there are a lot of new vulnerabilities being found in the open source communities. And with that, it's very difficult to find all the vulnerabilities in the open source. So it is a challenge for companies, for the software companies to figure out. Okay. There are also the software vulnerability, the patching management that is not easy for organizations, for the development organizations either, because every time you apply the patch or fix the vulnerability, you have to go back to make sure that that patch or the vulnerability fix is not breaking other part of the software. So there are a lot of challenges that the software companies that will have, or development organizations, they have to figure out. Okay, let's take a look at the malware. 17% of breaches involve malware. 46% of the small companies reported to have been breached with a malware, while only 20% of the large companies have experienced the malware. And I believe it's because larger companies have spent more money on the anti-malware technologies. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at the ransomware. Ransomware is about 27% of all the malware attacks. It has increased from 2019. And it is a big threat, so it's not going away. It seems like companies out there, they are still experiencing ransomware. As you hear, some of the big cities in the US, they also experience the ransomware attacks. So with that, I would predict that the ransomware attack is probably going to increase next year.
And last week we witnessed a ransomware attack, Snake, that shut down operations of one of the largest Japanese automakers for 2 days. So with what we've learned through the Verizon DBIR reports, what are some general recommendations for people who work in data security, Kyle?
Yeah, with a web application, let's say develop a secure software, secure web application and the APIs. Although it's not easy, also develop a secure coding practices that is available for the developers. Train the developers to use these secure coding practices and help them write secure code. Okay. Also implement secure code review process, whether it's automated or manual code review. Automation obviously is more recommended. Also highly recommend to do vulnerability assessment on the web application and the web APIs, because it's better for you to find out the vulnerabilities internally rather than the hacker to find out in the public. Let's talk about phishing. Sorry. So on phishing, how to protect yourself against phishing. Companies, organizations should provide training for the user to identify phishing emails. Also give instruction to users on what to do when they click on a phishing email by mistake. But the last thing is to implement some kind of anti-phishing technologies and integrate that with your email system.
And on that note, we're about to release a new video short series showing real-world examples of phishing emails and how people can more easily recognize them. All right, well, Kyle, thank you very much. I think this is very helpful for people. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
We'd love to hear your feedback about today's video and your suggestions for topics of interest to cover in our next video discussion. We're cybersecurity consultants who help clients mitigate the types of issues we cover in these videos. You can contact us through our website, and we hope that you will. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and be well.